Good morning, fellow Illinoisans. This is Joe Burning from Galena, doing my third in a series of videos from on horseback. I do some of my best thinking when I'm on a good horse, and it's a pretty nice day to be doing this. It's not overly warm just yet. The days that I've been wanting to ride a horse have been kind of limited, both by my schedules and by the weather. Neither my horse or I like to go out riding on a day when it's heat index in the upper 80s to lower 90s or even higher. So what I want to talk about today is that word taxes. We tend to live in a world where people just generally find it easy to complain about taxes. I like what my wife Chris said just the other morning when we were sharing a cup of coffee and the subject got brought up. And she said, well, I've never said this, Joe, but I kind of like paying my taxes. I like to see the added value that comes back to me in the form of services. And, from there we could talk about all the services that got cut with that doji operation, everything from less service at national parks to less service from our weather centers. We could talk about a lot of things that we are doing without now. The call centers for setting up Social Security and Medicare. The problems actually that have been created because we had this rather fictitious idea that there was too much spending and we would have to cut it all away with that good old chainsaw method that Musk used. So let's get back on track here to what's happening in northwestern Illinois and people complaining about taxes. First of all, Illinois has a flat rate tax for income tax. Everyone pays the same rate, whether you're making $20,000 a year or $2 million a year. And those that earn their way to making that $2 million a year would say, well, that's only fair. But you know what I've seen in my lifetime thus far? In several careers, I've seen it over and over again. The business owners, the large corporation people, the CEOs and vice CEOs, etc. They may have worked hard at one time, and some of them still are. However, it was the hard work of the employees of those companies that propelled them to the greatness that they became. And how sad it is that so soon those corporations, corporate America, forgets about those people and finds ways of discarding them, basically, so that they can make even more money, because enough is never enough. So let's talk about why some people, myself included, would like to go to something more like a progressive tax for Illinoisans. We know that Illinois is in trouble when it comes to how we balance our budget and the fact that we owe a lot of debt and that our pensions, for example, are only about 50% funded. And so how do we fix those things? No one likes these extra little taxes here and there on gas or items at the grocery store. Everybody's always complaining about, oh gosh, the governor just came out with another new tax. When is it going to end? Taxing me to death. Well, think about it. A progressive tax would mean that your wealthier people would pay a higher percentage of their income in the form of taxes. And guess what? They'd never miss it. they might complain about it for a day or two when it actually happens, but a day or two later, they'd never miss it. So Emmons taking a break here, and it kind of threw me off track. That's okay, boy. You need to take that break once in a while. So here's the thing. Here's an analogy, if you will. Most of us can relate to analogies, fables, for sake of comparisons. Picture a room full of kindergartner kids, and one of those kids has somehow carefully amassed a lot more toys in his play corner of the room than the rest of the kids. And the teacher questions him or her about that, and the kid says, well, I brought some of these toys to school myself, and others I found the other kids didn't really care about them, so I kind of gathered them up and I put them in my cubby hole. And so now at recess, I get to play with all these toys, and I shouldn't have to share them. So the teacher says, well, you're going to share them, and proceeds to take, let's just say, half of those toys away and spread them out to the other kids in that group who were complaining because they didn't have enough toys to play with. Well, that kid that just lost out on about half of the toys he thought were his cries a little bit, whines a little bit, and then all of a sudden looks around and sees everybody's happy, everybody's playing with a fair share of the toys, and decides it's not that bad after all. And he becomes happy, he or she becomes happy again, and they realize that, gosh, it really made good sense to spread the toys around a little bit. And so maybe what I'm saying in this analogy is we need to think about how we spread the wealth around a little bit. It's pretty hard to believe that any one person becomes a multimillionaire or a billionaire all due to their own separate efforts. It usually takes a lot of other people to get that person there. So I know that a few years ago, when there was talk of a progressive tax, there were several larger corporations left Illinois. Part of their claim was that they didn't like the business environment, that they weren't going to be treated fairly, etc. And they tried to cause a big stir in that direction, whereby some of the legislatures took hold of it and said, yeah, if we come out with a progressive tax, we're going to lose all the rest of our big corporations out of Illinois. They're just going to move somewhere else. The rich people are going to leave to go to another state where they can save some of their tax dollars. Well, guess what? Research has shown that doesn't happen. People put down roots. They tend to love an area where they live. And it usually takes an awful lot more than having to pay a little more taxes to make them get up and move to some other state where they don't know anybody, they don't have much family perhaps, and in some cases that area just isn't near as beautiful as what they have here in good old Illinois. So there you have some ideas that I've been wanting to share with you, and the actual numbers and details that we could talk about, such as how family farms do better at passing on the family farm with lesser inheritance tax, or what some people call the death tax. Some of those numbers I'm working on. I'm researching those, and there will be more on that later. I don't know if that's the kind of thing I'll put in a video like this, but I will be getting my ducks in a row so that I can talk about these things further. In the meantime, I hope you've gotten something out of this video. It looks like I've gone a bit longer than I wanted to, and I know that I rambled a few times. I apologize for that, but hang in there with me. Things will get better, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.